And welcome to the People's Perspective. And we have a good show today. Today we have the Director of Policy of Florida New Majority, Mone Holder. Mone, thank you so much for making time for me. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you for having me. How you doing?
Well, and I know you're a busy woman, so we'll just jump right on into it. Florida New Majority is a political faction that has their hands in a lot of things, and you're their director of policy. Can you touch on your position and also some of like the stance your company takes in the political process?
Sure. So just to let you know, we recently changed our name, so we're actually now the new Florida Majority. It's
Okay.
similar, but it's definitely different. So I just like to let people know about that. A lot of people don't know. So we're New Florida Majority or New FM. I'm the Legislative and Policy Director. I'm based out of Jacksonville, but we're a statewide organization. So we have offices here in Jacksonville and also in Miami. So I handle all of the legislative and policy work, which means I deal with elected officials, I do our lobbying during legislative session, both on the local, the state, and the federal level. And I'm also in charge of handling all of our organizational policies. So, like the stance we take on different issues that affect communities of color, the statements that we put out dealing with communications, media, and then also I have a part in our organizing. Because I'm based in Jacksonville, I'm the North Florida Regional Director, so I manage staff here in our organizing and field work both in Tallahassee, Jacksonville, and this whole North Florida area. So I kind of have my hands both in the political side and the grassroots organizing stuff as well.
And I understand, like you're from Miami, but what brought you to Jacksonville?
So because I'll get in trouble if I don't say this, I'm from Brooklyn. I was born in Brooklyn. I
Oh,
didn't move to Miami until right before high school started. So I was born in Brooklyn. I'm a Brooklynite, BK all day. I go to Brooklyn a couple of times a year. I'm going next week actually. In Miami was where I went to school. I went to undergrad and graduate school in Tallahassee. I attended FAMU. And I went back to Miami for quite some time afterwards and started working with New Florida Majority. But like I said, a lot of my work takes me back to Tallahassee for lobbying. So Jacksonville is actually closer. We also really wanted to expand both our Jacksonville staff capacity and really tap into networks here that other groups weren't doing. So I kind of made the decision along with our executive director that moving to Jacksonville would be the best thing. And it's been about 2 years now, but I like it.
okay. And so with you doing a lot of work in Tallahassee, how often do you get over to the state capitol?
So definitely during legislative committee weeks, which start about 2 months before legislative session. And then during the legislative session, which is 60 days of each year, I'm there pretty much full time. Outside of that, if I need to maybe have meetings with coalition partners or other organizations, um, some special events may take me up back and forth to Tallahassee. So I spend at least half of the year there.
Okay. And I know that the Florida majority they do a lot with rights restorations. Could you tell me a little bit more about that and how much of importance is that in the Black community? And how much of a push you all are putting behind that?
Yeah, so one of our core issue areas or our main issue area is voting rights. So of course, rights restoration falls under that. We tap into voting rights in other areas too, whether it's election administration, policy around it on the state and federal level. But as far as rights restoration, we've been working closely with some partners that have really been leading the charge, like the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition and Faith in Florida, working with them on local policy changes that will, restore the rights to vote to individuals that were formerly incarcerated, so ex-felons, and also working on a big ballot initiative push, helping to get petitions signed so that way we can get something on the ballot that would change Florida's current law that disenfranchises ex-felons.
And I understand if these felons get their rights back, it would mean bad news for the Republicans. And I know that you all don't take a stance and correct me if I'm wrong, you don't take a stance, neither Democrat or Republican, but I'm just figuratively like speaking, you know, like that's one of the things they really want to block. So if like how close away do you think that is from happening? Do you think that's something that will happen in the future?
Well, positively speaking, yes. I think Florida is way behind on that. We might be one of the last or few states left that disenfranchise ex-felons in the way that we do. Um, a lot of people have been on board on both sides of the table, both Democrats and Republicans, on moving towards rights restoration, because it's not just a Black person issue or a Democratic issue; it's everyone's issue. So I know some of our partners. I know Desmond J was on the show as well. He's been really tapping into it, showing me like white Republican people who are directly impacted by rights restoration. And I'm like, okay, that's a big thing because if it's across the aisle, if it's a bipartisan issue, I think it has a good chance of actually being changed.
Okay, and like I know, have Obama officially came out supported that? Did he even hint anything towards that? Because I haven't really been keeping up with him as far as that aspect is.
So I know criminalization in itself has been an issue that's been coming up with President Obama and his administration. As far as the rights restoration issue itself, I know some of our partner groups have gone up to the White House to talk to him specifically about that and have gotten his standpoint on it. And I think they're making some headway in it, hopefully coming out, because as we see now, he's becoming quite aggressive in some of his policy changes, which is good. That can be something that's a big push. But I haven't had a conversation with him personally about rights
Well, I mean, since we're speaking about President Obama, you know, like those first 7 years, he's been a different man this last year, and I think this year alone is the president that most Black people really want to see 7 years ago, 7, 8 years ago, whatever. Um, what are your thoughts about that? Especially like, you know, he's done a lot of things back to back to back to back. You know, he's not a lame duck in his last year.
Well, I think it's two things. I mean, I had this conversation with people for many years about, the president, the way he governed the nation and how aggressive he was or lack of aggression as far as policy. And I think some people have the thought that when we got a African American, a Black president, that he was going to change being Black in America all in one sweep or in one term, and that just wasn't able to happen. You're coming in off of the back of someone else, and he's not just the Black people's president; he's the president of the United States. So there's other issues that he has to take up and take them in stride. Right now, could he have done things differently to really impact communities of color, our people? Definitely. Would I have liked to see those things happen sooner rather than later? Of course. But it's politics, right? And it's not just about the president himself. He's not the ruler of all things. He has a cabinet. He has, a Congress that's not always with him, as we can see. So I think when folks really take all of those things into consideration, he did what he could, and he's done some good things. I mean, the last time I was at the White House, which was last month, was around the Voting Rights Act, and I was really impressed with some of his points that he put out about voting rights, the civil rights movement, and African Americans themselves having the right to vote. So that stood out to me. So I know his mind and his thinking is in the right place. It's just the way it's implemented policy-wise that I think people have to take a look at and think about from a different perspective.
How many times have you been to the White House?
So so this time that I went in August was the first time that I've actually been inside a meeting with the President of the United States, Congressman John Lewis, Loretta Lynch, and other folks. Another time I've been there was like on a tour when I was a child. And then a meeting with some partners or something in one section of the White House that didn't include any White House officials, but it was just like something taking place in an event. I can't even remember the exact name. So when I went in August, it was big for me because I was actually in a invite-only, intimate setting with the President of the United States about an issue that I actually care about. So it was awesome.
Yeah, I want to go to the White House. I don't think they're gonna let me in. I used to work for earlier this year Homeland Security, Immigration, Custom and Enforcement, and I think they did a little checking on me, not just my background. I think some of my social media. They was like, okay, we got to let you go, but and like with inside the meeting of the White House, how is that? I mean, it's just the mystique that the White House carries, and just knowing all those different presidents. I know it'd be like, to me, just to be inside that place, not just touring, but inside the meeting alone, man, that'd be like mind blowing.
Yeah, so I mean, and like you said before, receive the invitation and then accept an invitation, you have to submit like a lot of personal information to do a background check before you get the next level of information and know where you're actually going to go. So you do that, and then you go through the whole process of just getting in felt like official. And then being in that room, you have your badge, you meet people. But then once you got in there, it was a more relaxed environment. When the president spoke, he actually made everyone feel comfortable. It was almost like you were talking to like your uncle or your dad, right? It didn't feel like, oh, this is the president, let me not breathe in this space. Um, but everyone that was there, you could tell they were official. Of course, there was security around and everything. What I did find out that there's always a meeting behind the meeting. So there was actually State Senator Jeff Clemens was there, and I worked with him on some voting rights stuff as well. He's a senator out in West Palm Beach. He had been in like a pre-meeting to the meeting in the Oval Office with the president around voting rights, etc. So I know that must have been intense. But like I said, it's politics. It's always a meeting to the meeting. But it was a good experience. I did get a little, not nervous, but I felt a little tingle actually being, because I was in the front row, so being a few feet away from our president and being comfortable. So it was nice.
Oh, okay, yeah, because I know when Desmond was on the show earlier, he said the first time he came, he wasn't able to get in. And while he was speaking, I'm thinking in my head, well, if they wouldn't let you in, I know they wouldn't let me in.
Yeah, I didn't
Now,
have a problem getting in. I was good.
well, of course, I know you got that perfect background and that perfect smile that let you in anyway. Now, speaking of like, the race, speaking of the White House, the push for the White House. Now, what are your thoughts on the Republican side, if you can elaborate on that for a little bit, especially with Donald Trump and Governor Jeb Bush? I mean, we're both very familiar with Governor Jeb Bush being under his rule, so to speak, for 8 years. What do you think about that Republican side, and at the thought of them winning this election, what do you think that would do for us?
Well, in one part, I'm actually enjoying the show. I think with the numerous nominees on the Republican side, the way that they're actually going at each other is quite comical to me. So I enjoy watching the news and hearing what's next. I think everyone, myself included, are a bit surprised at how well Donald Trump is polling. I think, and I watched a show, I think it was on MSNBC, where they had a room filled with Donald Trump supporters. They were mostly white, but they were different ages and different genders, all in the room. And everyone pretty much respects his candidness and the fact that he does not have a political background. And that's something that I can see why people, that's appealing to folks. I think partially it's a little scary. So I'm interested to see who comes out as the front runner. I also didn't expect Ben Carson to be doing as well as he is doing now either. So like I said, I'm enjoying the show, and I'm just watching it closely, listening as much as I can to see what happens. But you never know.
I was surprised by Ben Carson. I remember watching the movie on him that Cuba Gooding Jr. played him and everything, and I didn't know he was a Republican. I'm like, wow. But it's a lot of those Republicans really, really respect him. I seen a elderly white lady like 2 weeks ago with a Ben Carson sticker on the back of her SUV. So I found that very interesting. And on the Democratic side, I know you a female that might not have much to do with it, but what are you supporting? Are you leaning towards? I won't say support, but leaning towards Bernie or Hillary?
I think it's still very early. I think, you know, Hillary was out first, but she kind of captured everybody, and of course she's a woman, so that would be iconic in itself. But I think both, um, or any Democratic candidate, really has to make sure they stick to the issues that are affecting us now, right? So me being part of the rising American electorate, since I'm still kind of young, you know, I have different things that matter to me. So I'm really just listening to see which candidate speaks to those and really has some clear solutions. So right now it's just too early for me.
Yeah, I remember. I was hoping that one of the Castro twins out of Texas would run. I met one of them when I was working. You know, where I said I was working earlier this year, and there were some really down to earth people, so I really like them. But I think I'm leaning a little bit towards Bernie. But I don't know how much of a chance he really have coming out of the elections. And so, like, you just came back from Europe. Are you jet lagged?
Oh my gosh. So today I'm feeling a lot better. I when I first came back, I had a sore throat. I was coughing. I was sneezing. I think I picked up every cold germ of everybody everywhere. Because I went on a cruise ship, so I was cruising the Western Mediterranean, stopping in different parts of Europe. So being on a cruise ship, being in those different countries in that extremely long flight, but I had an awesome time. So now I'm starting to get back on catching up on my sleep. But yeah, Europe was amazing.
Yeah, because I used to live in London for a little bit, and man, I really like it over there. I wish I could move back, but you know what I'm saying, it's so expensive over there. I don't think I can handle it. But I was looking at you, I was following your trip on Facebook. It brought back so many memories, you know, from Big Ben to, you know, all the stuff that was going on. So that's cool. Now you graduated from FAMU, right?
I did, yes.
Now what's I hear so much about the beef between FAMU and Florida State. Um, is that like rumored or is that realistic?
I wouldn't really say it's a beef. A lot of my friends went to Florida State, um, so I don't think so. I think you know in Florida, any school has a beef with each other, whether it's about the band, sports, or whatever. But it's all in it's all in fun.
Okay, and my last question is when Desmond was on the show, he was talking about like getting those petitions together. Are you all pushing petitions? And if so, how can anyone in the state of Florida or anywhere that matter can get with you or try to contact you to try to put their name on the petition, or is it available online?
Yes. So both in our North Florida and South Florida offices, we've been organizing groups of volunteers to go out and get petitions signed, either on at site base or as we see people with door to door. So we're still actively working on it because we have a goal that we want to push to actually get the petition certified. If you want to get in contact with me or anybody from our team, because we're all working on it, you can actually go to our website. It's newfloridamajority.org, or you can follow me on Twitter as well and reach out to me there. But on the website, it has the information about the petition. It has our office location as well as my email address and our telephone number. So you can reach out there and I can get you petitions. I can sign you up to be a volunteer so you can help get petitions signed or just give you more information. So definitely check out our website or you can follow me on Twitter.
Well, I thank you so much for making time out for me. I know you battling all kind of colds and stuff you brought back with you from overseas, and you know you got a lot of work to do. So I appreciate it, and you know hopefully we could bring you back on the show. And I know I was going to get Desmond, see if I get you and Desmond together and have a really good dialogue with like a panel session. So I'll be in touch with you about that. So I wish you the best of luck, and I appreciate it.
Totally. Thank you so much for having me.
No problem at all. Okay, y'all. Until next time, man. We'll see y'all later.